In this video, I'm going to show you how to replace the radiator cooling fan control module on this Audi A4. This is going to be located in the radiator fan assembly. Let's get into it. We're going to remove these screws. Use a T30 socket. Underneath, there's going to be 3 fasteners right there, and there should be a shield underneath here. This vehicle doesn't have it. You want to take those out, use a T30 socket, and remove that shield as well. Using the tool from the trunk, go in the center cap, and just pull it off. Using a 17mm socket, take the lug bolts off. Before you take the last one off, I'm just going to hold the wheel so it doesn't fall. Take that off and grab the wheel and slide it off. We're going to remove part of the inner fender well. Just use a trim tool. Just take this push pin out. Just pop that one out. Using a T25 socket, remove these screws. Pull the inner fender well back. If there's any push pins along the bottom, you want to take those out as well. Just slide this back a little bit. We can see right here. We'll take those 2 out. Same T25 socket. On this part of the bumper, there's 2 studs going this way. You need to take those 2 nuts off. You're going to use a 10mm socket. So we're going to peel back the inner fender well a little bit more. Set that aside. Using my 10mm socket. Take the nuts out. Grab that. And do the same to the other side. And then you can grab it from the sides. Just pull forward. Pull the bumper cover out. And if you have fog lights, you're going to have to disconnect connector over here. Push down on the tab and slide that off. Using a T30 socket, there's a screw right here. Take that one out. There's one here. You're not going to take it out. You're just going to loosen it because the headlight is slotted. And then down here, the T30 socket, you're going to need a long extension. And same deal. Just loosen that up. Because it's slotted, you can grab the headlight assembly and it just slides forward. Disconnect the connector, just push down on the tab, and do the same for the other side. Remove the cap, the coolant. Make sure the engine's cold when you're doing this. Just set that aside. Now underneath, near the radiator, we're going to drain the coolant. There's a little wing nut right here. You have to loosen that up. You could use a little pair of pliers if you need to. Just be careful not to break it. Just put a drain bucket underneath. It should come right out there. There we go. Let that drain out. And now we're going to close up that drain. Just twist that. And just close that up. That's good. Remove these 2 screws. Use a Phillips head screwdriver. take this piece off. This This is just the snorkel for the air intake. And just pull the weather strip out. Just pull this off. Set that aside. Those panels on the side here, we want to take those off. Use a T20 socket. Take these screws out. Take that screw out and then just grab this panel. Just twist it. It'll come right out. You can do the same on the other side. And then just slide it out. We're going to disconnect the connector for the horns. Just push the tab down, slide the connector off. You're just pushing on that. Do the same on the other side. Now using a triple square M10 socket, I'm going to take these bolts out. All right, those are loose. Pull those bolts out. Grab the bar and slide it out. Disconnect the connector right here and the AC high pressure switch. We're going to take these bolts out. Use a 13mm socket. You're going to do the same on the other side. We're going to leave that nut right there. That's going to just hold this bracket in place. Using a T30 socket, take this screw out. Do the same on the other side. Take these two screws out, T30 socket. Same on the other side. Then you want to just hold the front end a little bit. You should be able to tip this forward. And the connectors over here on the driver's side, we're just going to disconnect those. Just push down on the tab, slide that off, and grab the connector. Rock that back and forth. Do the same on the bottom one. Just try pulling it out first. And then we can disconnect it here. Push down on the tab, slide that off. Disconnect the upper radiator hose. Just use a pick. Just take this clip out. You can put it in service mode, or sometimes it's just easier to take the clip out completely. Grab the hose, slide it off. Follow the hood cable. Just grab right here. We'll just pop that off. It's just clipped in. Disconnect this connector down here. Just push down on the tab. Slide that off. Using a trim tool, just going to pop off this retainer right here. And you can see there's clips holding it in. Just want to get under those clips. You can just use the trim tool or a pick to just get under those. Just take this wire and just slide it over up top, just so it's out of the way. This wiring harness goes down here, and there's a harness that goes over here. We don't have to take that one off, but we want to disconnect it from the fan shroud. Just pop these clips up. Just use a pick. We'll pop that off. Just follow the harness down. And pop those off, and just grab the wire, pull it out. There's a couple of retainers up here. This one we're going to cut. This one we can pop out. Just using a trim tool, get underneath here, pop that one off. And this one here, we'll just cut the wire tie. Just pull that wire out. And we'll just pull that to the side. Using a 13mm socket, take these two bolts out. Now we're going to take these screws out on the side, use a T20 socket. And further down. Now using a 13mm socket, take off the two bottom bolts. Take those out. Grab the fan assembly. And it comes right out. Using a 10mm socket, take these two bolts out. Take this wire, just pull it past the clips. Pull this module up. And there is some retainers holding the wires on. Use some cutters, some side cutters, and pull those out. Just using a trim tool, just pulling the wires out. Just clipped in. You take the new module, line the wires up. You want to give yourself a little bit of slack, so we can cut that right about there and right there. Cut those wires because there's no connectors for these wires, so we're going to splice those in. Just take some side cutters and just cut right there. Cut back on the insulation. I'm just going to use a utility knife. So you can expose the wires. And you want to take some wire strippers and just cut back on the insulation. Just take that off, just enough for to be able to use the butt connectors. And we'll do the same on the set of wires right here. All right. If you need to trim these back a little bit, you can cut these so that you have plenty of room to work. So those will go together. Match the colors. I know this one's pink, but the pink and purple are going to go together, and the orange and the tan are going to go together. Now take the module. There's a little tab right here. It's going to go in the slot. Slide that in. Push it down. Take the bolt. Get that started. Snug that up. And snug down the other bolt. So those are lined up. Let's trim this up a little. I'm going to put a little shrink wrap over first because I don't have shrink wrap connectors. And put the butt connector over and crimp this down. Just give it a wiggle. That's tight. Do the same on this one. And crimp this down. That's tight. Give it a wiggle. That's good. Move the shrink wrap over. You can heat that up, shrink it, and using a heat gun, just shrink this up. And you want to do the same with all the other wires. Just make sure there's not too much slack and try not to overlap or have the connectors too close to each other. You can stagger them a little bit, makes it a little nicer. And we can wrap it up with electrical tape as well. All right, now those are all butt connected and shrink wrapped. I'm just going to take some electrical tape and just tape them up just to keep some of the elements out. And then you want to push the wires into some of the retainers. And if there's an area where you can wire tie, just to keep it out of the fan blades, just wire tie some of the wires out. That's good. Stick those there. Same with this one. Just have those out of the way. And just trim the excess. And take the fan assembly, just get it lined up. Take the bolts, oops. Take the bolts, get those started. And before you tighten those down, get the screws on the sides started. Just push this wire in place first. It's going to go through there. That's good. All right. Get those lined up. Now tighten down the bolts. Snug down the screws on the side. And take the wiring harnesses, get those lined up the way they were. Push those in place. And before I push the retainers over, or the little hold downs, we're going to connect the connector. And push that in there. That's good. That's all lined up the way it came out. And push all these brackets on. All right, that's good. Now connect the connectors. And just slide this into the bracket. Lock those in place. That's good. Slide that one into the bracket. Good. And the hood release cable, make sure you get that lined up in behind here. Make sure that goes in place. I'm going to lock it down. Before you close the hood, it's a good idea to test the latch. Just make sure that you got the cable in there properly. You can activate the latch and then just go release it just with a screwdriver. Take this clip, reinstall that. And then as we push this in place, take that, line that up, lock that down onto the radiator. Get that lined up. And the other side. Get that started. And get the other bolt started. Make sure those wires are out of the way. And before we tighten those down, we'll just line these up top, get the bolts started, just make it easier. And do that on both sides. And on the side. And we'll tighten these down. You can see where the bolts were, so just get as close as possible to where the bolt in the washer was. So you might have to lift it, make some adjustments if you have to. There you go, snug those down. And same on this side. See, that's off a little bit, so you might have to loosen up the other side. Just raise this up a little. Get that close. There we go. Tighten those down. And tighten that down the other side. We'll torque these bolts to 17 foot-pounds. And now we'll tighten these down. Snug those down. And just connect the connector for the pressure sensor. And take the bumper, line that up. And take the bolts, get those started. And just do the same on the other side. Then we want to torque these to 17 foot-pounds. That's good. Plug the horns in. Make sure that locks down. Take this panel, get this in place. That's good. And the other side. That's good. Take these air deflectors, line those up. Twist those in place. And take the screws. Get those started. Snug those down, and then the lower screw as well. And then you can do the same on the other side. Now take this weather strip and slide this in place. Now take this intake, just slide this underneath. It's going to go there, and those are going to go together. And put the screws in. Snug those down and connect the connector. And line this up. Get that headlight lined up. Snug those down. sure it looks like it's lined up right with the fender. If not, you can loosen them up and make adjustments. Now slide the bumper in position. Before we do, we got to connect the connector over here. Plug that in, make sure that's tight. Line this up. Make sure you line the studs up on the sides. And push that in. We can get the 2 nuts that are going to go on those studs. And get the 2 nuts started. Tighten those down. Take these screws, get these started. Tighten those down. Inner fender well, get that lined up. And get the screws and push pins back in place. There's one up here. And we'll tighten those down. Snug those up. Do the same on the other side. Take the wheel, slide it in position. The lug bolts, get that started. Snug that down, then you can let go of the wheel. Snug those down. Now I'm going to torque the lug bolts to 90 foot-pounds in a cross pattern to tighten the wheel down evenly. And just go around again, double check. Good. Take the center cap where the hole is. You want that lined up with the valve stem. Just line that up. Tap it on. Underneath, if you have the splash shield and the retainers, you want to put that back and install the bolts right there. This vehicle does not. And up top, put the bolts in. Get those started. Snug those down. And you want to top off the coolant. Use the appropriate coolant for the vehicle, a 50-50 mix. You can use a funnel, pour it in. You want to fill it up to the max line. Put the cap on, then start the vehicle and run the vehicle, constantly monitoring the level and also monitoring the engine temperature, and make sure the engine temperature does not go overheating. After about 15 to 20 minutes, you want to shut the vehicle off, let the vehicle cool down, and then adjust the level accordingly.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.